Welcome to Moments That Matter. Every day, history gives us a story, life gives us a lesson, and sometimes a little humor reminds us not to take everything too seriously. In this podcast, we explore fascinating moments from history, surprising stories from everyday life, and reflections that makes us pause and think. Because often it's not the big events that shape our lives, but the small moments we almost overlook. But today, let me share something a little different. Instead of talking about a historical moment or a story from the world, I want to talk about why this podcast exists in the first place. Many of my friends have asked me why this podcast and why start something like Moments That Matter. And the answer is actually quite simple: curiosity. Curiosity about life, curiosity about people, about the strange and beautiful ways in which small moments shape our thinking. If you really think about it, life is full of questions. Why do people react differently to the same situation? Why do some difficult moments break us while others makes us very strong? Why do small acts of kindness stay in our memory longer than the big achievements? Most of the time we notice these things for a few seconds and then life moves on. But what if we pause for a moment? What if we actually think about them? And that's where this podcast begins. For me, this podcast is not just about sharing ideas, it's about learning. When you decide to talk about something interesting does happen. You start noticing the world differently. You read more carefully. You listen more deeply. And you observe people more closely. Just a simple conversation between two friends suddenly becomes very interesting. A small misunderstanding between generations suddenly makes you think about how perspectives change with time. Even a quiet moment during a difficult period, like the time many families spent together during the global pandemic, it reminds us how faith, patience, and relationships are tested in very unexpected ways. These moments may look ordinary, but often they carry quite big lessons. And the truth is understanding. Life is a lifelong journey. None of us have all the answers, and we are all learning, sometimes through books, sometimes through experiences, and sometimes through mistakes. This podcast is simply my way of thinking out loud about these experiences. Not as a lecture and definitely not as a advice, but just as a conversation. Because I'm sure maybe you have noticed the same things. Maybe you have seen how expectations sometimes create disappointment. Maybe you have noticed how younger generations bring confidence and new ideas, while older generations bring experience and wisdom. And maybe the real lesson is that both the perspectives does matter. In many ways, this podcast is also about a personal growth. When you take time to reflect, your perspective slowly evolves. The way you see people does change. The way you react to a situation does change. Even the way you understand yourself begins to change. Life is not only about big milestones, it's about the quiet moments in between. a small act of kindness that restores your faith in humanity. These are the moments that truly shape who we become. And that's why this podcast is called Moments That Matter. Because when we pause and reflect, we start seeing the meaning in places we have never noticed before. So, if this podcast does anything at all, I hope it does just one thing. I hope it makes us pause, even if it's just for a moment. Pause to think, pause to understand, and pause to appreciate the small experiences that quietly shape our lives. Because sometimes the smallest moments carry the biggest lessons. Thank you for spending a few moments with me today. Until next time, keep noticing, keep reflecting, and remember, life is made of moments. Make the ones that matter and that counts the most.